Ladies and gentlemen, it's 2:01. I think we can go ahead and get started. We'll allow people to join us as they do. I want to say good afternoon and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. My name is David Covington. I'm the Executive Director for the Alumni Association of the City College of New York. And welcome to our very first virtual Alumnus Spotlight event. So we have a dynamic guest today. I'm looking forward to this discussion. First, just a brief history. The Alumni Association of CCNY can trace its origin to its first graduating class. July 26, 1853, members of the class, meeting in the chapel of the original building on 23rd Street, formed the Associate Alumni of the Free Academy. And through the years, we've grown, incorporated, and changed our name, and now the Alumni Association of the City College of New York has 15 local affiliate groups and 10 active chapters around the country. We are a membership-based, independent organization located on the campus of CCNY. If you are an alumnus and not already a member, I invite you to stay connected to your alma mater and learn more about our association at www.ccnyalumni.org. I'll ask my associate Nina to put that into the chat bar as a link. And also a quick plug, you'll see another link in the chat bar. Our largest event of the year is coming up, the annual gala, and you are invited. Due to the coronavirus, we've moved our event online and we'll be presenting the main event on Thursday, November 5th at 6 p.m. You can learn more by clicking the link in the chat bar or by going to our website, ccnyalumni.org/events, to learn more about all of our upcoming events. Like so many other organizations, COVID-19 has presented significant challenges to meeting our mission, and yet we persevere. Pivoting quickly to the virtual space, I just want to acknowledge and thank our event manager, Nina Farrell, who is our host today. She's done a wonderful job at pulling our online events together, so thank you, Nina. She would like me to remind all of you that this event is purposefully set up as a large meeting, so that later in the program, you'll have the opportunity to unmute yourselves, ask a question, and engage with our moderator and guest if you wish to do so. So until then, please remain muted. At any point in the presentation, if you wish to ask a question, you can send your message in the chat function, and either Nina or I will field that question to the moderator for discussion. And of course, there'll also be an opportunity, as I mentioned, at the end of the event for you to unmute yourself and ask the question directly. Good afternoon. We welcome two incredibly talented and successful alumni to our screens. Our guest, Jon-Christopher Bua, is a White House correspondent, commentator, and political analyst attending White House daily briefings and press conferences on a regular basis. Tonight, we get the inside scoop on what it's like to work at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the current environment, with the latest on the 2020 election, Black Lives Matter movement, COVID-19, and President Trump himself. Our moderator, Barbara Nevins-Taylor, is a Townsend Harris medalist, winner of 22 Emmy Awards, and more than 50 other journalism awards and honors. She's currently the acting journalism program director for the Department of Media and Communication Arts program at City College, and a longtime member of the Communications Alumni Affiliate Board for the Alumni Association. Thank you both, Jon-Christopher and Barbara, for joining us this afternoon. Barbara, I'd like to hand things off to you to start. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Nina. Thank you both for asking me to moderate this event. And hello to everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. Jon-Christopher and I discovered the other day that we were on campus at the same time, and we're even in some of the same classes. And that was a pretty exciting time at City College. I graduated in 1970. Jon-Christopher, you graduated in 1972?
71.
71, okay. So same time, same kind of turmoil. How many people were there at the same time? Anybody? Anybody else? Just us, the Lone Rangers. Okay. Well, we're gonna get right to it with Jon-Christopher, who told us right before we came onto Zoom that he had hot news from the White House, breaking news. Jon-Christopher, what's up?
Well, clearly I am not attending the briefing today because I'm with you, but I've had it on my lovely little phone, and a couple of my colleagues were tweeting me that several members of the White House staff tested positive for COVID today.
Woo.
Yeah.
You know who?
No, they would not tell us. In fact, they told us to look at social media to find out because they weren't going to divulge that. Now, I won't say that's any kind of characterization of how this White House works because we are too early in the conversation to allude to that. But that's basically how we got our news. So take it or leave it, and I'll drop it right there. And that is falling on, and I'm not going to get, I know you want me to talk about the momentary stuff, but it is relevant and germane to the fact that there was a huge South Lawn meeting with the Israelis, the Emirates, and the Bahrain, and none of the senior staff or none of the Trump people, the White House staff or in his administration were in fact wearing masks. So that's a bone of contention, a big one.
Boy. All right, well, let's step back and shift over to pre-COVID.
Yes.
And when Trump came into office. What was it like covering those White House briefings?
Well, the only way I can answer that, and I'll briefly say, in comparing it to the president who was there before him, and that was Barack Obama. The difference is night and day. The kinds of you have a question. You look like you're ready to ask me something.
I do, because if we're going to put this into perspective, I think we should also say that you also covered the Bush administration. So you have a Republican administration and you have a Democratic administration to contrast the changes with. So just describe for us what it was like in those.
Well, first of all, I came to Washington in '93 as an appointee of Bill Clinton. And I was on the other side of the podium. I was kind of like the person making up the stories and spinning the stories at the DNC and at 3 federal agencies. And the White House was different with Clinton. They had 2 very, very, very capable press secretaries, at 4, but actually Mike McCurry and Joe Lockhart. Then Bush came in with Tony Snow, who was an excellent, excellent guy. Sadly, he passed away early on in his lovely life. And then after that, Obama came in, and there were 3 guys. There was Gibbs, Jay Carney, and Josh Earnest. And they were pretty swell guys, and they knew me. And the whole point of the White House briefing is, how well do you know the press secretary, and how often will you get called on? Well, with Josh, with Gibbs, first of all, he helped me because he got me an exclusive interview with Barack Obama from Cape Coast Castle, Ghana, while I was with Sky News. And I had a relationship. You build a relationship, and you can see it now. But when I was there, Josh called on me practically every time I raised my hand because I asked him not gotcha questions, but intelligent questions, in questions that he would want to answer. And as a lot of my younger colleagues say to me, one who's now moderating the debates, Kristen Welker, how do you give me some advice? I say, always ask the person something you think they want to talk about. Now, you may not ask them the perfect question, but stimulate them. Ask them a question they want to discuss. And she's taken that. And now you'll see how she does in the debates. But she's an excellent, excellent colleague. Then after Obama left, he said goodbye, everybody, and walked out. And that was the end of him. The Trump team came in. And boy, I don't think anybody can forget the inaugural back in 2017, January 20th, when poor Sean Spicer had to get up there on the podium and say, in a rather loose-fitting and ill-fitting suit, he changed his tailor, I'm sure. He said, this was the biggest inaugural crowd ever in the entire world. And unfortunately, when you saw the photos, when you saw the coverage, it was practically half empty. It wasn't true. And that was the beginning of Sean's difficulty. And I always remembered Sean and then Sarah Huckabee, Kylie McEnany, who's now there, and a few others. They went out. Remember Scaramucci? They got rid of him. He was too cute, too smart. He was gone. You are always playing to an audience of 1. And that 1 is POTUS. Donald Trump. He is watching what you do and what you say, and if he doesn't like it, you're out the door. So it's been a very interesting time. And a lot of different kinds of news organizations came into that briefing room.
Before we get there, let me just ask a question about the lies. So the size of the inaugural crowd was a lie told by Sean Spicer,
Yes.
and apparently he was directed by his boss and other people to do that. Was that the first time anybody lied to you at a White House briefing?
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing because when JFK told Pierre Salinger that we were having a problem with the invasion in Cuba and the Bay of Pigs, he didn't tell him. Sometimes they don't tell you, because if you go out there, they know you're going to have to lie to tell the truth. So a lot of people will not tell their press secretaries. And fortunately, this president, Obama, look, Obama, I liked him as a human being, smart guy. I didn't agree with everything he did policy-wise. He had some problems with the press. But this administration, they don't like to tell the truth. They don't think it's going to inure to their benefit. So they actually, we used to say prevaricate, we used to say fibbing. Now even like CNN and Brianna Keeler and a lot of my colleagues are saying he out and out lied, and they'll do a side-by-side truth against lie. So it's very difficult.
So it's become the new normal. When did you realize that that was the way it was going to be, that you were not going to get the straight story from these people, whether it be Sean Spicer or the person who followed him or Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
Well,
yeah. When did you realize that it was that the new normal was the lie?
Right off the bat. I mean, it just got more. At first, it's hard to believe, because you really know that the president of the United States needs us as much as we need him. And Trump is very manipulative, and he's also very savvy. He can occupy the topic of the day by making a statement, and it'll be a false statement, and then someone has to come out at 3 o'clock and undo it, and then he'll tweet later on at night at 3 o'clock in the morning and undo that. So you really don't know as a press corps who's telling the truth. And when I first started in the Trump White House, there was a lot of different news organizations, Russian news organizations, Sputnik TV, RT, some really, really tough right-wing organizations that I don't know what that's all about.
So RT, we should say, is a Russian-financed television network.
Oh, yeah.
Hires American journalists to report, but it's definitely Russian, and it's definitely got a Russian slant. Is that correct?
Oh, and they are very much wanting Putin to continue their relationship with Trump. Let's put it that way. And that is a tough one, because you see the press people calling on OAN, One American News, who is very, very much aligned with Russia. In fact, the correspondent that comes to the White House has been with Rudy Giuliani in Moscow. I mean, it runs very deep. I'm not giving away any state secrets.
No,
but there are a lot of that.
People who don't know about, John, just to go back, because can you just describe what OAN is for people who might not know, so we're not talking inside baseball? It's
OAN is One American News. That and Newsmax and Breitbart and a few others are very, it's hard to say right wing because it's Russia and you think of Russia as being communist and left wing, but everything has gone topsy-turvy. They make Fox look like, like MSNBC. They are really tough, but they will ask softball questions. So when things get rough, they will ask one or two of the people at OAN to get some relief, and it usually feeds right into their narrative of the day.
So that changed. That's a big change. So
I looked around. I didn't see anyone I knew.
Right. The lies and the Russian and right-wing news organizations occupying precious real estate in the White House. And then along comes COVID. Ooh, what has changed for you since COVID?
Well, fear of death, number one.
Well, like all the rest of us. Thank you.
I want to be candid. the haphazard way that the White House has dealt with this virus, the way that the president has, well, we all watch. I'm not going to go over the politics of that, but it's definitely become politics versus science, and unfortunately, the mask seems to be the raison d'être. It seems to be the main thing, the MacGuffin, as Hitchcock would like to say.
Right. So when you do go to the White House now for these briefings, which are very restricted, and the number of people
only 15 people, Barbara.
Right. So if the atmosphere seems more charged, much more confrontational, how has the attitude from the White House staff and the president himself changed toward the journalists, and how have the journalists' attitudes changed toward the president and the White House staff when they're interviewing the president?
That's a superb question. Not many people would have asked that the way you did, so well done. And the answer is kind of multi-layered. When Trump sent out his people, okay, he was okay with that for a while. And then COVID hit. So then I guess he felt like he better get some experts up there. So we got everybody's favorite doc, Regis High School grad, Brooklyn born, Tony Fauci, a swell guy. I've known him for years. They got Fauci, they got Dr. Birx, they got another fellow from the CDC, Redland, and they had a task force, basically a coronavirus group. And they would have a briefing every week on the coronavirus. And Trump would be there, and Trump put Pence in charge. He was the main man. He was the go-to guy. Don't ask me why. He knows nothing about medicine. He's not an epidemiologist, but they put him out. I guess they had to have a face. Trump didn't like the way Fauci, it was Dr. Birx as well, you know, that lady with this, they call her the scarf lady. He didn't like where the things were going. And he started to talk about, this is going to end real soon. You know, he knew about this in January, but I'm not going to get into that. He would talk about, well, and the Bob Woodward, I mean, it just doesn't stop. We can get into that later, maybe with some questions.
Okay.
But he said, you know, this is no big deal. It's going to go away. You know, it gets warm, it'll go away. It's just going to disappear. And then he brought up the fact that you could get Lysol or Clorox or Light and inject it under your skin. Well, there's a few pictures.
Yes.
Hello.
In the den.
There's nice ladies on.
Okay, so
We'll continue.
At the computer.
Okay.
Shall I continue?
Yes, she's been muted. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Nice lady. Happy to have her. When he started to talk about injecting Clorox, or you could just take Clorox, people went out and started to buy and drink Clorox. There were fatalities from those. The president speaks to a very unique group of followers. I call them his disciples, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But there's a picture of Dr. Birx, and they call it, one of my fellow photographers from the White House did a tweet and said, this is what the Stockholm syndrome looks like. He was talking about Clorox, and she looked like she wanted to just die. And she looked at Tony Fauci, and the both of them were like, what is he saying? Well, he got beat up on that because it's an absurdity, but he never wanted COVID to be a big deal because his raison d'etre, his real reason for being at the White House was to make a great economy. Now, if he's seen with a mask or the COVID is killing now almost 200,000 Americans and the economy is not doing well, there's over 20 million Americans out of a job, Fauci would be out on another network or speaking from his office with COVID, speaking from his home office about how this is not going to go away. This has to be taken very seriously, that there's no magic vaccine, that there's no magic prophylaxis that's going to come. This is going to take time, maybe even a year. He didn't like that. So Fauci found himself no longer on the platform. And that's how it changed. So Trump thought, as he thinks always, he's the best spokesperson he's got. So he starts doing these by himself. And he pretty much got scalped on that. Well, I shouldn't use that word for him. It's not fair. But he pretty much took a beating on that aspect. And he brought another guy in, a guy who's basically a radiologist. He reads X-rays, Dr. Scott Atlas, and he's basically his yes man. So there's been a lot going on. Now you asked me, I'm not going to keep blabbing, but you asked me what it was like for the press to deal with all of that during these times when we asked tough questions. Well, Trump doesn't like tough questions. Now, if you want me to go down this road a little bit, I can. He has a special, let's say, I'm not hearing you, Barbara, sorry.
A lot, so I hope everybody's indulgent.
Yeah.
I think what the question really is, and we've seen it because a lot of us watch TV news or watch online, and we've seen the interaction between members of the White House press corps, you included, and the president. And the tone seems to have changed. What's your view about that?
You mean the tone from Obama or the tone during Trump?
The way reporters I know did not always like President Obama. They didn't, because he didn't really like reporters for the most part. He found them too intrusive. He found the 24-hour news cycle irritating. And he felt that the news media wasn't patient enough. Okay, fine. But now we fast forward to this, and there's an incredible confrontational environment, it seems, in the White House briefing room. Do you feel that? Do you see a change there?
Well, I the first time I saw anything that was really nasty was, now, Trump has always disliked women and women of color, and he insults them. He calls them stupid, you're ignorant. And the kind of ad hominems that come out, especially for the few very senior, respected African-American journalists, is appalling. Now, the most blatant attack is when Jim Acosta from CNN, who some people like, I happen to think he's wonderful, he's a good friend of mine. And when I was at Georgetown, he used to come and speak to my class, so I gotta love him. And he was asking a question to Trump. Trump didn't like it, and Jim persisted. And Trump is from Queens. I'm from Queens. I know these kind of guys. I thought he was going to come down off the podium. I know we love Queens. He's from Jamaica Estates. I'm from Kew Gardens. All right.
In Laurelton.
Love Laurelton. I love the park there. Oh, it's beautiful. He was ready to come down off the podium and duke it out with Jim. I swear. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not going to be good. And then he sent one of his young ladies out, his gaggle girls, we call them, the people who are in his press.
You call them what?
Gaggle. They're always there for the gaggle. They're part of the herd. The herd. They cattle push you out, tell you to be quiet, shove you out of the Oval Office, scream when they don't want you to ask questions. Please get out, get out. It's wicked. But this young lady came over and tried to yank the microphone out of Jim's hand. It was appalling. That's when it really started. And now we have some very fine Yamiche Alcindor, who is a superb journalist, pushing the president. April Ryan pushes them for questions. They get insulted, like personally insulted, and then he won't answer the questions. But the good thing, I think this happened now, Barbara, maybe this is what you're seeing. The press corps, who was often told, why do you even show up? Why you even go? Don't give him any air. We go because you never know. He could say something totally outrageous, like, we're bombing Hong Kong. I don't know. It's always something. So when we go, we're ready for that. Now, last week, he told John Carl from ABC News, who used to be the president of the White House Correspondent Association, that he was a disgrace. He loves the word disgrace. It must be a Queens thing, because my mother used to use it about me a lot. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace to ABC News. That's a disgraceful question. Carl asked him a simple question. And then what happened was, Carl was demurred a little bit, and someone else picked up Carl's question. Now, that's never done before. That's just recently, over the last 6 months, is being done by the press corps. we're becoming more of a one voice operation where we will follow up and say, Mr. President, I'd like to follow up on Jim's question or on Yamisha's question. And then he really gets angry and he'll walk off. That's happening.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out for me was there was a confrontation between President Trump and Weijia Jiang,
Oh,
CBS. Were you
lovely,
there then?
lovely young lady.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who might not have seen it, what happened was she was asking him about how the United States, how his administration was handling the coronavirus. And he said, why don't you ask China? And now she's wearing a mask and she sits back kind of abashed, just like somebody slapped her in the face. And then she takes off the mask and she said, why did you ask me that question? She's Asian, she's Chinese.
Yeah.
And he said, because nasty question, you asked a nasty question.
You got that right.
It wasn't a nasty question. Anyway, he ended the press conference after that. It was very, very startling. But her follow-up was also startling, honestly. I think she's a very good journalist. And
she's wonderful.
Yeah.
They're all going to the White House briefings, and I've been going now for 20 years. First with Sky News, and I've met Dan Rather and Bill Plant and all of these, some of the best, Cokie Roberts and Mara Elias, wonderful, wonderful journalists. And I always say when I come home, I've been with the most intelligent people on the planet. These are journalists. It makes you feel proud. But when you go down, if you go down into the dirt with him, either you come out smelling bad, or you rise to the occasion and say, look, I'm going to deal with this. This is dignity. This is the people's house. I'm going to make sure that I get my news organization pleased. As you know in television, my executive producers telling me what to do. I got to satisfy that and come out doing what the American people demand of journalists, putting the administration's feet to the fire. That's one of the things I teach my class. Put the administration's feet to the fire, and you put our feet to the fire, because that's why there is journalism.
Oh, well, it sounds like the job has gotten a lot tougher, Jon-Christopher, no?
Well, it doesn't feel like there's no joy in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. There's a lot of contention. There's a lot of ducking. I wear rubber gloves. I wear a mask. I watch. I really love to go to see all the camera people and the crew and my fellow journalists. That's great. But when it comes to thinking you're going to get any real answers from this, all of them, you're not. If they don't like it, they'll insult you. They'll ridicule you, even personally. And if they really don't like you, they won't call on you. That's why some of us are a little trepidatious about it. You saw Wolf Blitzer interviews, this one or that one, or they'll bring on Jared Kushner was on a few shows. He was doing like the round robin, and I'm sitting here at home. I wasn't at the White House, and I'm saying, follow up on that question. Don't let him get away with that. And thank you, Jared, and congratulations on the deal, the Middle East peace deal today. Thank you. Because Barbara, you got to get these people on. That's how you make your living. You got to get the guests. If you don't have the guests, you don't have a show. So there's a lot of that.
Well, let's talk about the architect of the lying strategy, the alternative facts, Kellyanne Conway. She recently left the White House, I guess temporarily, because she's got a family problem with a teenage daughter. She and her husband are polar opposites. He is a Republican never Trumper and is very active on Twitter, George Conway. They're married. They're neighbors of yours. Can you describe the dynamic?
Well, I knew James Carville and Mary Matlin quite well. I knew James from the Clinton administration. Mary was a guest often on my Sky shows. And I always would say to my wife, I said, these ain't the same. Because if you see Mary and you see James, they're fiery, you're full of it, that kind of stuff, but they liked each other. And you knew when they went home, they probably argued, but there was an interest. They had a self-interest. And I think Mary, I think, is a super lady. Now, I know George, you said he almost ran me over the other day while on his jog. I didn't realize he was on the phone. and that he resigned supposedly from the Lincoln Project. I believe that's what it's called. But he still tweets. He says, "I can't help it. I have to tweet this out." And I know you're
Does
on
everybody
Twitter.
know what the Lincoln Project is? The Lincoln Project, yeah, okay, then we don't have to go through it. Great, okay.
It's astounding. It's a bunch of Republicans, who are very, very upset with where their party has gone. Let's put it that way. They're, rock solid Republicans don't buy this craziness, this fanaticism, this QAnon concept. And they did that. So Kellyanne, who I've known for a number of years, in fact, I knew her when she was Kellyanne Polls, when she had her company, and she did very well. And she was okay, but she can be very insulting and go toe-to-toe with you. And she's good. And I think Trump liked her because she was really a very attacking kind of person. They have a daughter, who went and started to do her own little Instagram pieces, I guess, and she went off on both of them. I mean, you can look it up. I'm not going to quote her. Adorable little kid. They live about a quarter of a mile from here. And she just ripped into both of them, abuse and this and that and the other thing. And they decided.
She's a 17-year-old. We have to stay away from her and just.
Yeah, no, 17-year-olds, they're a special kind of person. And people were feeling for her, and she got a lot of sympathy. And I guess her parents had to rise to the occasion and get out of the public eye, because that's what she was saying. They're not here for me. They don't do anything. You know the story.
Yeah. So what is it like? What was it like? But do you know what the dynamic between George and Kellyanne is? Have you dealt with them as a couple?
Well, I've seen them at White House events. He holds her stole or her coat, and he's a sharp guy. He's very wealthy, very successful man. And I'll never know what goes on between married couples. I have enough questions in my own marriage to wonder, how do anybody stay with that person? I mean, I don't know. He seems like he's very clever, he's very easygoing, and he's friendly. She is an attack dog. I've talked to her, and her favorite thing to me is, you're getting ahead of yourself. That's one she'll. I said, no, I'm not getting ahead of myself. I'm asking you a question. Are you a lawyer? She'll say to certain people, especially women, she'll go toe to toe. Are you a lawyer? Are you a doctor? I said the COVID thing is over. It's going to be done. It's going to be done. How can you say that? You don't know? You're not a doctor. And she'll throw it back on you. Now, Trump, who loves that style of fighting, he's a New York so-called businessman. He's a fighter. He sues everybody. He's got 1 million lawsuits out. He's being sued himself. So he likes confrontation. He's a master manipulator. So he gets turned on by this kind of activity.
Jon-Christopher, have you had any interaction with the Trump children?
No. Just not really, no. Well, no. To be honest, no.
Okay.
I kind of stay away from them.
I understand. So they don't pop into briefings.
Well, Jared on occasion has come in and, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But I think I may have been lucky to have missed that one. But I don't know them at all. No.
Okay. I think people probably have questions now. No? Would we like to ask some questions of Jon-Christopher? Nina, David, do we have any questions in the chat? If not, I'd like to solicit some questions from you.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, Barbara. Right now there are no questions in the chat, so we can.
We can keep talking, but does anybody have anything strike you? Anyone?
I have a question.
Great.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you too.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the phone call. I thought it was muted. Anyway,
Charles Bruno.
what amazes me, for whatever reason, you don't say, give me an example. What are you talking about? I don't need proof. I just want to have an example of what you're talking about. For all of this. And then why don't they do what they used to do? Where you mentioned this a little while ago, that when one reporter says something, another one picks up when it's not answered. That's very rarely done, even now. So, and it seems to me that many of you are as much an enabler as the rest of his enablers, because you're not doing what I would think would be your real job, where you're getting a little tougher and just asking the logical question of, if he says we're doing better on COVID than anyone else, why don't you say, show me an example?
Yes. What's your name, sir?
Charles.
It's Charles Bruner. Charles.
Charles. I have to say we do follow up. We do say that is wrong. Your facts are wrong, Mr. President. I will respectfully tell you. And then what happens is he turns your microphone off.
Yeah, but he can't do that to everybody.
He turns your mic off.
Yeah,
and
but he
then
can't do that to
he'll
everybody.
insult you. He'll call you a disgrace. And if he doesn't like the question, he calls you a disgrace. He basically walks out and he won't even look at you. I think I probably have with 5 or 6 really. In fact, one of my colleagues asked the first question in the briefing today, and I tweeted it out. Barbara, you'll see it on Twitter. He asked about the Woodward book, and that the president lied several times to Bob Woodward, and he said that the pandemic was a big deal, and then he's now saying that he played it down, and that a question was asked, and Kylie McEnany said, "You're crazy. You're wrong. What's the matter with you? Ask Governor Cuomo. He knows the answers." It's a challenge, but I think people like Brian Karam and Caitlin Collins follow through very toughly and ask the questions, and it's the way that they're holding the mic and they're holding the sound, and if they don't like it, sometimes they'll just turn your mic off.
Yeah, but he can't do that to everybody. I
He
guess
does
what
it-
really,
he does,
what
no, he doesn't
really
do it to
bothers
everybody.
me.
He doesn't do it to everybody. He does it to the people who he doesn't like. He won't do it to OAN because he needs them and he wants them.
But I guess what really bothered me is this thing about Obama. Lock him up. For what? What do you want to lock him up for? That he was a president? He was more well-liked than you are?
Because he doesn't like him because he's a racist, and he can't believe that a black guy was elected twice. And I know that for a fact, and Bob Woodward has also written about
But that's
that.
not everybody knows that. But why doesn't the press corps harp on that? I'm saying he can't close down everybody there. He could close down maybe 3 or 4 people, take their mics away, but he can't close everybody down.
Well, here's the answer to that. There are so many, and he floods the zone. He floods the zone with tragedies. Every day, he's got another issue. Whether it's the forest fires, he went out to California and he didn't see the forest fires. Okay, he is going to mass rallies with hundreds and thousands of people who are not wearing masks, who are now spreading the coronavirus. I don't know if you were here before, but now there are additional people who've been tested positive today. So if you want to talk about the Obama issue, which is a valid issue, and about Strzok and about how he went after them and the lawsuit and Burmisa and Biden and his son, there's only so much time. You get one question, and because there's so much with this administration that needs to be addressed, that it's difficult to pick out, for example, the Obama story. And we feel, Obama can defend himself. We know that Trump lies. Everything he says is a lie. There's nothing he's ever said that is not a lie, except it's maybe his name, and that'll have to be fact checked. We've got fact checkers making a fortune and losing much sleep because this guy does not tell the truth. And as Bob Woodward said in his book, I think within his own mind, he doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. And that's frightening.
Hey, thank
Susan
you.
Koenig has a question. Susan
Yes.
Koenig?
Susan Koenig.
Okay, well, her question is in the chat. I'll read it to you. She said, indoor rallies in fear of death. How does the resistance on the part of the administration to follow the commonly recommended safety protocols for COVID relate to the current divisiveness in the country? And what impact will it have on the election in your view?
Well, there is a certain group of MAGA followers. Hello, Susan, by the way. there's a group of MAGA followers who were probably, I call them his disciples, they've deified him. The lower he goes, the more they like it. Now, Hillary made the big mistake of looking terribly elitist in 16 when she called them a basket of deplorables. That didn't sit well with Hillary's followers. And Hillary, you know, I adore Hillary. That's how I got to Washington. I met her years and years ago as a volunteer. But you have in his, and you can watch them, they run to his rallies. They don't have masks. They don't want to wear masks. They feel that it's their constitutional right not to be told what to do. And he really can hit that nerve. And they love him for that. He is basically the hell with you president. And they love to be treated poorly. Now, he would never even see these people socially. I won't use the metaphor, but he wouldn't even be around these individuals, although he knows he needs them because that's his base. And they are hook, line, and sinker all for him. And they don't wear masks, and they've made it into a political game.
That's a perfect segue into the next question. Charlene,
Okay.
Charlene Schwarzkopf, are you there? Do you want to ask it or should I read it? You have to unmute.
You can read it, Barbara.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay. Charlene has a great question. She says, I'd be curious to know what he thinks are the major issues that will turn previous voters for Trump to Biden, if there are any swing voters left. What's your thought?
I think the jobs issue is the most. There are people who are promised, you know, the world would be, you know, they would have health care, they would have jobs, the farmers. He's made deals with China. They've taken the jobs. So he talks about all the automobile plants he's building. He hasn't. And those people who were on the fence, let's say they didn't want to vote for Hillary. I think this may be, Charlene, what you're thinking. I'm going to give Trump a try. You know, I'm not crazy about Hillary. I'm not crazy about Bernie, although Bernie and Obama in many ways are very similar. I think that they have a real desire, and I've seen a lot of Republicans, and that's where the Lincoln Republicans are. They have not come through for me. It's all about what is it for me. I mean, Tip O'Neill, he would always say that. There's usually one issue, and it's usually local. Is it hurting my kids? Are my kids in the hospital? Are they on a ventilator? Has he protected us from COVID? Is my life any better? Can I get a job? Or can I get my unemployment that was promised me? The $600 extra a week that he cut? These are questions that resonate, especially with working people and with people who are struggling.
Jon-Christopher, Charlene's question resonates with me because I ask that question every day. You know, what will make the difference? What is the tipping point? Is it Bob Woodward's book? Is it him? Whatever. As you point out, there's a crisis every day. There's something new that people think will change things. We see these rallies that he's holding now. Thousands of people are still coming out, or hundreds, if not thousands.
Thousands, yeah.
Yeah. Is there, and this goes again to Charlene's question, is there the possibility that anything the Democrats can say will actually pull voters away from Trump?
Well, I think Joe Biden, they were concerned about Biden. He's not the Biden he was 8, 10, 20 years ago, a little older guy. He is out there showing some compassion. I happen to know Joe Biden for years. He's a decent man. He's showing compassion, and he's showing understanding where America stands in the world. You all know we can't get on a plane and go and fly to London. We can't go to Paris. We can't fly. I can't do my business in Europe because Trump's virus pandemic response has been so bad that the EU won't let us in. That is crazy. Now, that will affect some people, but the people who will drop Trump and go to Biden are those whose lives will be affected. I think, and it's pretty entrenched right now. That's why Trump is scared to death of early voting, because there's a lot of people who have already made up their minds, and I'm not going to go into this topic yet, but the debates are coming up, and he wants to get the votes. He wants to get the debates in before those mail-in votes come in into the voting places.
So has he talked about that? Has his team talked about why the mail-in voting and early voting is a threat to him?
That's all he talks about. He says mail-in voting is a fraud. That it's rife for Russians and Iranians and Chinese, mostly Chinese, because he doesn't believe the Russians will affect the election, and neither does Attorney General Barr. But he really does not like mail-in voting, and he says it's absentee voting is okay. It's the same thing, as you know. He doesn't like that because they are pieces of paper that can be counted and that can be seen, and there's a trail. If you go into the computer, into the modem, that's how the Russians attacked us in 2016. They can do a lot of skullduggery online, and you will never know it.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Do we have another question from Arthur? I'm looking straight at you, Arthur Becker. Do you have a question? You have to unmute. You have to unmute. Left-hand corner.
I wonder what you thought at the forum yesterday, where Trump was being asked questions from swing voters. The few I heard didn't seem like they let him off the hook that often.
Was this the ABC with George Stephanopoulos?
Yes, sir.
Town hall.
I have to tell you, and what's your name?
Arthur.
Arthur.
Hi,
Becker.
Arthur. I know George since the Arkansas, since the Clinton campaign, and he is a tough cookie. He put Trump a few times about the Affordable Care Act and about what he wanted to take out. You have no health care. The people in the audience, especially that doctor woman, was a PhD, and she went right after him and said, "No, you didn't do that. No, that's not what it is. That's not true." And the gentleman who asked him about the way he treats the people of color, I think they were probably better than any pundit or any person in the audience that the news media could provide, because they were the real thing, and their lives are affected.
So do you think that'll change votes?
Yes.
Well,
You know
that's
why?
They
You know
were
why?
also
I'm sorry, Arthur.
they were also a lot smarter than he is.
Well, I'm not going to comment. I don't like to say anything like that. But I compared the interview. All you educated people will understand. I said that Donald Trump thought the interview that Woodward would be the James Boswell to Dr. What's his name? You know who I mean. Johnson, Dr. Johnson. Boswell was the biographer of Johnson. He knew him. He was a friend. He was a contemporary. He was a little older. We had Kennedy, had Arthur Schlesinger. I think by all that Bob Woodward said, and I know Bob Woodward for 20 years, he thought that Trump thought he was going to get a nice legacy book out of this thing. And I put it up on Twitter saying, Boswell, this was not a Boswell interview in terms of Dr. Johnson, but this was, and someone said, Trump doesn't know who Boswell is.
Jon-Christopher, let's take another question. This is a good one. Is why does it seem that Latino voters, some Latino voters, may trend toward Trump, or not even trend toward him, actually vote for him?
Well, there's some question about, as I talked to the campaign, about Joe's solid performance or solid polls in Florida. And Mr. Bloomberg, who was involved, he was a presidential candidate for a while and dropped out. And all the Dems were saying, hey, Mike, put your money where your mouth is. Let's help some Dems, support the Senate campaign. Well, he put $100 million into Florida. And that was, you can bet that was targeted towards the Latinx demographic, the voter. But here's something that many people don't get, and I understood this way back during Clinton. You can't take the Latino Hispanic voter as one thing. It's not monolithic. If you come from Southwest Texas, you're a Tecate. If you come from Miami-Dade, that's a different thing. There's a lot of Cuban Americans there who came from Cuba, their background. If you come from Orlando, there's a huge Puerto Rican influx. New York City, God knows, you've got everything. Dominicans, Puerto Ricans. I learned Spanish in Catholic high school. When I spoke in my neighborhood, no one knows what I was saying because I was speaking Castilian. I had to relearn the whole concept of speaking Spanish, which was kind of fun. Although I did have a good class at City. But this is what people don't understand. And people get insulted if you try to push a certain agenda on one kind of ethnicity and think you know it all. Remember Ross Perot, who would say, I know you people, your people, you people, your. I mean, that is so terribly insulting. And I think that's a real time bomb for people, a real landmine.
Right, but I think the question is a good one because there have been polls that indicate that a segment of the Latinx community will vote for Trump. What is the appeal?
Religiosity, religious belief. The fact that Trump.
It's abortion. It's abortion.
Well, I mean, I don't even want to get into Trump's personal life. He's anti-abortion, right? In the meantime, Trump is seen as followed by Jerry Falwell and his son. He is followed by the evangelicals. He is anti-abortion. He held a Bible up in front of the church on Lafayette Park about a month ago, but he doesn't go inside. You know, Joe Biden's a Catholic guy. He's a blue-collar Catholic guy from Pennsylvania. We all know that. And Trump appeals to perhaps the conservative Latinx community who believes in the Catholic Church, and that might be part of that. I can't speak on behalf of a culture. I will never do that, but I think that there may be some truth in that.
Okay. Yvette, do you have a question?
I have a
Okay,
question.
who is that?
Paul Schwartz.
My name is Paul Schwartz.
Hi, Paul. Okay.
How is Biden doing now compared to where Hillary was the same time in the campaign?
Okay, so the question is compare Biden's status now with the way Hillary was in 2016.
At this
Biden,
stage,
shall I answer that for you, Paul? I'm happy to.
yeah, please, at this stage of the campaign.
At this stage in the campaign, if I remember, Hillary seemed somewhat strong, but don't forget, Hillary never went to some of the states that she assumed she would win. And Joe Biden is doing very well in Michigan and in Ohio and in Nevada and in Wisconsin. Now Hillary had, figured, I got these states. And I think Biden is doing more strongly than Hillary did back 4 years ago. But I also think, if you remember, Hillary won the popular vote. And the electoral college system, which I personally think is a remnant from the Reconstruction era, should be done away with, but that's personal opinion. I don't think it's fair. I think it was done for wrong reasons. But it'll come down to the electoral college, and I think Biden is probably stronger than Hillary was back then, although everybody thought Hillary was going to win. I was one of the only people, and I did a lot of international news, said, be careful. Trump is going to take this because he has been able to dominate with his personality and with his visibility. He already came on the scene a star, and in his own crude way, there's a lot of people who say, what the hell? Let's go with this guy. Hillary's, unfortunately, Hillary is brilliant and a wonderful person and would probably make a great president and was a terrific Secretary of State. But there was an issue that people had with her. They said she wasn't warm enough. My favorite candidate would have been Michelle Obama, but nobody wants to hear that.
Okay, somebody else has to have a question, I bet. Warren, Walter, Jerome, Robert, I'm calling you out like I would call my students out. Ingrid, oh, I see you laughing at me. Go ahead, please. Yeah, you have a question.
I do, and boy, a tough teacher you must be.
Okay, so funny. So I'll tell you, we're teaching online. So I told Jon-Christopher and Nina and David the other day, I have developed a really bad habit of leaning in. Like I lean in. I want to pull you out. I mean, I can't. It's so hard. I can't. It's so hard doing it this way. But anyway.
So here's my question. What needs to happen? I mean, when Kamala Harris came on, vice president, the campaign was punched up. So where our speaker now sits, from where you all sit, what needs to happen to keep the campaign, the energy really high? And I would also like to know, what would be your playbook to say, don't do this and don't do that, for goodness sake? So what keeps you energized and what should you do?
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask you where you got those blossoms at this time of the year. And they are stunning.
So I'm also a photographer. And
Oh,
this is a cherry blossom that blooms outside of my house that I took a picture of.
They're stunning. They're beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
worked on, I've been involved in 8 presidential campaigns. And the best one as a professional, the best one was Bill Clinton in 92. He was new, he was fresh, he was really smart, and he was down the middle. He wasn't too far to the left. He came from a very conservative state. As they used to say, when I would talk to people in Arkansas, they'd say, thank God for Mississippi. Because Arkansas was not the 50th on the ladder, on the rung. Mississippi was, not to impugn anyone from Mississippi. But he was a fresh guy. He was a smart guy. He had a lot of energy. He really knew how to get people going. And to tell you the truth, the whole thing with Arsenio Hall and Did I Inhale and all that, shorts, boxers, whatever, it made him more appealing. And people liked him. He had a likability. He had a youth and a likability. And he chose, and I worked on his campaign in New York City with Harold Ickes as a volunteer before there was an Al Gore. And then Al Gore came on the scene, and the two of them were like, dynamite. And that excited the country. They went right away. The next day after the convention, they went all over the country, traveling, looked like, these two solid dudes, whatever you want to call them. And that was a success.
So to go to Ingrid's question, she's talking, about Biden and Kamala Harris, and I find it really exciting to see her get off the plane with energy. And
well, that's the whole point.
How much of a difference do you think that's going to make? I really do. I think it's.
I'm comparing the energy of one campaign to another. I think the Obama and his running mate Joe Biden was a good team. I think the fact that Kamala Harris had a tough response to Joe Biden during the debate gave her an incredible lift. She was a tough gal, and she was an attorney general. She was a prosecutor. She's tough. She's all the things from my background in campaigns is a positive. We just got to see her more. I think she's going to pull Pence to pieces during the debate on my birthday on October 7th. I pity Pence getting on the stage with her. And I think that's going to give the campaign a boost. We're not seeing them that much. And why is it? Because unlike Trump, they're being very careful about the crowds they talk to. So they're doing virtual things. They're doing stuff on TV. They're doing interviews. And I don't know, to be honest, I think it's a very dynamic team, and I think people will appreciate the fact that Joe reached to a younger woman and a woman of a different ethnicity and ethnic background, and I think that may be a plus for the ticket. I certainly hope it is. Hope he made the right choice, because I don't want to sound too much like a political guy, so I'll stop right there.
Thank you, Jon-Christopher. David, it's the clock reads 3 o'clock. Do we continue or do we stop?
Well, we are at time, but I would like to actually ask one question to close on. I know, Barbara, that with your students and many younger members of the communications alumni of the Young Professional Alumni Association, they're entering as journalists into this new combative environment in Washington, D.C. So what's your advice to them, Jon-Christopher? I mean, this is not.
Oh boy, I've been talking about this question. You know, I've taught at Georgetown and Catholic University going on 12 years now, and I do a podcast, and I'll give you my Twitter at JCBUA, and you can find my podcast if you tweet me at JCBUA, and I teach classes. In fact, I'm not teaching in the fall, but I taught a class just like this online. The last 6 classes were as if I'm talking to you. And many of the students were foreign. I had 7 students from Saudi Arabia in my graduate class, believe it or not, at Catholic. And I always have to be careful because they want to be in politics. They want to go home and do media. They are so excited. Even the graduate students are like sponges. The undergrads, you know what that's like. But these are a little more professional, but I don't want to leave them with the impression that this is a hopeless case, that America is not going to be a great nation, that we've been through World War I and World War II and the Depression and Vietnam, which we know and Barbara knows havoc on our campus. But I always want to leave with the impression that there is hope. Now, for the first time in my lifetime, I don't see the enemy necessarily from the outside. I see it coming from the inside. There is a certain anger with Trump and his people that can really hurt our Constitution, that can really hurt our spirit. I pray that it doesn't, and I try to be positive with all my students. And you know, when after Hillary lost, I had a class, and they all said, "Professor, what are we going to do?" They were crying. There were some Trump people there, and I respected that. What are we going to do? I said, "You're going to go home. You're going to work for a candidate. You're going to run for office. You're going to be part of your school board. You're going to be involved, because if you empower yourself to do something positive each and every day, knowing that this is a great country and we will survive everything, will come through, then you can." And from that lesson, I've had students who stay in touch with me all the time. You know, that talk changed my life. Now I'm a journalist. Now I'm working on a campaign in Vermont, whatever. You have to realize, pass it on and pass something positive, and realize that they think you know the answers. We don't, but we can try to inspire and empower our students.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I teach my students that it is really important to understand that this, we hope, is a blip in history, and that the cycle changes, things change, but change takes a long time. And the real change makers are always young people.
Yes.
And if they are passionate, if they care about something, they need to jump right into it. For journalists, I've been a journalist all my life, and I'm an outsider, a person who is outside the mainstream, outside the circle. And I have to reinforce to them that it's really important to stay outside, that we all have our biases, we all see things through our own eyes, our own filters, but it's really important to try to step back and report what you know, only what you know.
Remember, someone's going to be reading it.
Absolutely. Thank you both so very, very much for this discussion. This was really an incredible step for
I'm seeing virtual applause. I like that.
And virtual applause all around. I want to encourage all of you who've attended today to follow Jon-Christopher and Barbara. We've put their Twitter handles in the chat bar. You can link.
Oh.
I'd also encourage you to please check out what's up next for the Alumni Association. You can, again, check upcoming events at ccnyalumni.org and join as a member. If you want to learn more about Jon-Christopher, there will be an interview posted in the next issue of the Alumnus magazine that comes out it'll hit mailboxes in a month. So if you're not a member, join today and you'll get that in your mailbox next month. So
One last thing.
Yes, please.
Please, everybody, register for the Townsend Harris event. That's the big fundraiser, the gala that we usually have in person, now online, as David explained. But this is a fundraiser for the college. It's really important. And we have great honorees. David?
We do. In fact, I will share the post again, the link, and I will even, if you will indulge me, I will share my screen and show you the upcoming event. Where is it? Barbara, you warned me on this. You said, make sure you have it ready.
Oh, look at that, was us.
That was you all. Sorry, everybody. Well, click the link. That's where you need to go. Nina, if you can post again the gala link, not the link to John Christopher's event.
So fundraising for City College now is really crucial. We need a lot of support from alumni. It's more important than ever before. We have a budget deficit. We face funding cuts. My classes are full, some classes are not, but the students are really trying as hard as they can, and the teachers, professors, administrators at the college are trying as hard as they can to make the learning and teaching experience as rich as possible. But we need outside support to do so many things, to do so much more.
So thank you all for considering and supporting the Alumni Association and its mission. You'll see, as Barbara mentioned, we have an incredible lineup of awardees this year: Townsend Harris medalists, Cherie Allen, Radha Blank, Charles Copeland, Bob Jeffrey Levine, Herbert Rubin, and Lev Spiridov. And our 72nd John Finley awardees, Jimmy Breslin, Pete Hamill, and the incomparable Joe Namath from the Jets. So we're excited about our event. Silent auction will start on October 29th and proceed for a week. And the event itself, the main event, will take place at 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 5th. So click through the link that's in the chat bar, register for the event, and we will see you there. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. I want to thank again Barbara Nevins-Taylor and Jon-Christopher Bua. This has been an absolute treat. We look forward to continuing the conversation and continuing this. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.